The afternoon sun poured through the cafe's large windows, warming the wooden tables and filling the air with the smell of fresh coffee. Maya moved quickly between tables, balancing a tray of drinks with practiced ease. This small cafe had become her safe place over the past 6 months, a quiet corner of the world where nobody knew her painful history, where she could simply breathe without fear. She had left Ryan 7 months ago, after 2 long years of controlling behavior, harsh words, and moments of fear she still tried hard to forget. Leaving him had been the hardest thing she had ever done, but also the most necessary. She had rebuilt her life slowly, piece by piece. A small apartment, this job, a fragile sense of peace she had fought hard to find. As she wiped down a nearby table, Maya glanced briefly toward the corner booth near the window, where a man sat quietly by himself. He had been coming in every day for almost 2 weeks now, always ordering black coffee, always sitting in that same corner, always watching the room with sharp, alert eyes that missed nothing. She did not know his name. The other staff whispered about him sometimes, his expensive suits, the black car with tinted windows that waited outside, the 2 serious-looking men who occasionally stood near the entrance without ever coming inside. Something about him felt powerful, dangerous even, though he had never caused any trouble. He simply watched, quiet and controlled, like a man used to seeing everything before anyone else noticed. Maya had learned not to ask questions about customers like him. In this part of the city, some things were better left unspoken. She was refilling a customer's water glass when the cafe's front door slammed open with a force loud enough to silence the entire room. Ryan walked in. Maya's blood ran cold instantly. His eyes locked onto her immediately, dark and furious, the same terrifying expression she remembered from their worst nights together. "There you are," Ryan said loudly, his voice carrying dangerous anger across the quiet cafe. "Did you really think you could just disappear from me, Maya?" Maya's hands trembled as she set down the water pitcher slowly. "Ryan, please, not here." "Not here," Ryan repeated mockingly, stepping closer, ignoring the shocked stares from other customers. "You don't get to tell me where and when, Maya. Not after everything I did for you." "You need to leave," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady despite her racing heart. "This isn't the place. I'll go wherever I want," Ryan shouted, closing the distance between them dangerously fast. Before Maya could step back, Ryan grabbed her wrist harshly, his fingers digging painfully into her skin. "You embarrassed me. Left me looking weak in front of everyone. You're going to fix that. Right now. Let go of me." Maya cried out, panic overtaking her as painful memories flooded back all at once. "Ryan, you're hurting me." The cafe had gone completely silent, other customers frozen in shocked disbelief, too stunned or frightened to intervene. The young barista behind the counter reached nervously for her phone, unsure what to do. Ryan's grip tightened further, his face twisted with rage. "You don't get to walk away from me. Not now, not ever." Maya struggled against him, tears of fear and frustration filling her eyes, her mind screaming at her to fight back, yet frozen by years of learned fear. Suddenly, a chair scraped loudly against the floor. The quiet man from the corner booth stood up slowly, his movements calm and controlled despite the sharp, dangerous intensity radiating from him. His dark eyes, previously calm and watchful, now burned with cold, barely restrained fury as he stared directly at Ryan. Every person in the cafe seemed to sense the shift in the room immediately. Even Ryan paused, confused by the sudden tension, as the mysterious man walked forward with slow, deliberate steps, each one echoing ominously through the silent cafe. "Let her go," the man said quietly. His voice was calm, controlled, yet carried an unmistakable weight of danger beneath its stillness. Ryan turned, sneering arrogantly at the interruption. "This isn't your business, man. Walk away." The stranger stopped just a few steps away, his expression unreadable, though his eyes remained locked coldly onto Ryan's hand still gripping Maya's wrist. "I said," the man repeated, his voice dropping lower, more dangerous. "Let her go. Now." Something in his tone made even Ryan hesitate, his confidence faltering slightly under the man's intense, controlled fury. Slowly, reluctantly, Ryan released Maya's wrist, stepping back defensively. "Who do you think you are?" Ryan demanded, though his voice now carried a hint of uncertainty. The stranger's lips curled into a cold, humorless smile. "Someone you really don't want to make an enemy of today." Maya stood frozen, cradling her aching wrist, staring between Ryan's confused anger and the calm, terrifying control radiating from a stranger who had just stepped in to defend her. A man whose true identity she was about to discover in the most shocking way possible. Ryan stared at the stranger, confusion and anger battling behind his eyes. "You think you can just walk over here and threaten me?" he snapped, though his voice wavered slightly. The stranger's expression remained calm, almost bored, as if Ryan's anger meant nothing to him. "I don't make threats," he said quietly. "I make promises, and I'm promising you, if you touch her again, you will regret it." Ryan let out a nervous, forced laugh, glancing around the silent cafe for support that clearly wasn't coming. "Do you even know who I am?" "I don't care who you are," the stranger replied simply, "but you should care about who I am." He nodded slightly toward the cafe's entrance. Ryan followed his gaze and saw two large men standing just outside the glass doors, both dressed in dark suits, watching the scene with sharp, alert eyes. They hadn't moved, hadn't said a word, yet their presence alone sent a clear, unmistakable message. Ryan's confident posture faltered slightly. Who are you?" The stranger's cold eyes never left Ryan's face. "Damon Reyes." The color drained instantly from Ryan's face. Even Maya, still trembling from the encounter, noticed the sudden fear replacing Ryan's earlier arrogance. She didn't understand the name's significance, but clearly, everyone else in the cafe did. Hushed whispers spread quickly among the frozen customers. "The Damon Reyes?" Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper now, all bravado gone. Damon said nothing, his silence somehow more intimidating than any answer could have been. Ryan swallowed hard, glancing nervously between Damon and Maya. "I didn't know she was connected to you. I'll go. I won't bother her again." "See that you don't," Damon said quietly, his tone leaving absolutely no room for argument. Ryan practically stumbled backward, quickly retreating from the cafe without another word, disappearing rapidly down the street outside. The tension in the cafe slowly began to ease, customers exchanging shocked glances, whispering amongst themselves about what they had just witnessed. Maya stood frozen, still holding her sore wrist, staring at the man who had just intervened. Up close, she could see his features clearly for the first time. Sharp jaw, intense dark eyes, an aura of quiet control that seemed to fill the entire room. "Are you all right?" Damon asked, his voice noticeably softer now as he turned his attention fully toward her. Maya blinked, still processing everything that had just happened. "Ah, yes. Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't." "You're shaking," Damon interrupted gently, noticing her trembling hands. "Sit down." Maya obeyed automatically, sinking into the nearest chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her properly. Damon sat across from her, his expression unreadable, though his eyes remained watchful and concerned. "Who was that man to you?" Damon asked quietly. Maya hesitated, embarrassment and old fear mixing together painfully. "My ex-boyfriend. We broke up 7 months ago. He doesn't handle rejection well." Damon's jaw tightened slightly. "He hurt you before, didn't he?" Maya looked away, unable to meet his intense gaze. "It doesn't matter now. I left him." "It matters," Damon said firmly, "especially since he clearly hasn't accepted that." Maya finally looked up at him, curiosity overtaking her nervousness. "Can I ask you something?" Damon nodded once. "Why did you help me? You don't even know me." Damon considered her question carefully before answering. "I don't like watching people abuse power over someone weaker than them, especially not in front of me." Maya studied him closely, sensing there was more beneath his simple answer, though she didn't push further. "Well, thank you. Truly. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stepped in." "You would have handled it," Damon said simply. "You're stronger than you probably realize." His words, though simple, struck something deep within Maya, a small spark of confidence she hadn't felt in a long time. Before she could respond, One of Damon's men appeared quietly at his side, leaning down to whisper something urgent into his ear. Damon's expression shifted instantly into something more serious and focused. "I need to go," Damon said, standing smoothly. He glanced back at Maya, his expression softening slightly. "But I don't think this is the last we'll see of each other." "Wait," Maya said quickly, standing as well. "Who exactly are you? Everyone reacted so strongly to your name." Damon's lips curved into a small, mysterious smile. "Someone who prefers people don't ask too many questions, Maya." Her breath caught slightly. "How do you know my name?" "I make it my business to know things," Damon said simply, before turning to leave, his men falling into step beside him as they exited the cafe. Maya stood there, overwhelmed, watching him disappear into the black car waiting outside. Her manager, an older woman named Carol, rushed over, her face pale with shock. "Maya, do you have any idea who that was?" Carol asked urgently. Maya shook her head slowly. "Not exactly. Just that his name is Damon Reyes." Carol's eyes widened further. "Damon Reyes runs half the city's underground business. People fear him deeply, Maya. He's not someone you casually cross paths with." Maya's mind raced, processing everything that had just occurred. A dangerous, powerful man had just defended her from Ryan, seemingly without any hidden motive, only genuine concern. That evening, walking home nervously after her shift, Maya couldn't shake the strange, unsettling feeling that she was being watched. Though this time, strangely, it didn't feel threatening. It felt oddly protective. She reached her apartment safely, locking the door behind her immediately out of habit. As she prepared for bed, her phone buzzed unexpectedly with a text message from an unknown number. "You made it home safely. Good. Sleep well, Maya." Maya's breath caught, staring at the message in stunned disbelief. Somehow, impossibly, Damon Reyes had been watching over her, ensuring her safety without her even realizing it. A realization that left her both unsettled and, surprisingly, comforted all at once. Maya stared at her phone screen long after reading Damon's message, her mind racing with confusion and something she couldn't quite name. She typed a reply, deleted it, then typed again before finally sending a simple response. "How did you know I made it home safely?" The reply came almost instantly. "I told you. I make it my business to know things." Maya frowned at her screen, unsure whether to feel unsettled or strangely reassured. She set her phone down slowly, deciding not to question it further that night, too exhausted from the day's events to process anything more. Over the following days, Maya noticed small, subtle changes around her. A different car seemed to park near her apartment building each evening, though she never saw anyone approach or bother her. At the cafe, she occasionally noticed unfamiliar faces sitting quietly near the entrance, always polite, always ordering coffee, never causing any disturbance, yet somehow always present. She mentioned it hesitantly to Carol one afternoon during a quiet moment at the counter. "I think someone might be watching the cafe," Maya said carefully. "Or maybe watching me." Carol glanced around cautiously before answering quietly. "That would be Damon Reyes's men, dear. If he's decided to protect someone, believe me, you'll never actually see danger coming near you again. That's simply how he operates." Maya's stomach fluttered with an unfamiliar mixture of nervousness and reluctant comfort. "Why would he bother protecting me? He doesn't even know me." Carol shrugged knowingly. "Sometimes powerful men like Damon see something worth protecting. Be careful, Maya. Men like him aren't simple, and they're never uninvolved once they decide to care." That evening, as Maya left work, a sleek black car pulled up quietly beside her, the same car she recognized from her first encounter with Damon. The window rolled down slowly, revealing Damon himself, watching her calmly. "Get in," he said simply. "I'll drive you home." Maya hesitated, glancing around nervously. "I usually just walk. It's not far." "I know," Damon interrupted gently, "but it's getting late, and I'd feel better knowing you got home safely." Something about his quiet insistence, rather than demanding control, eased Maya's hesitation slightly. She climbed into the car cautiously, settling into the leather seat as Damon signaled his driver to proceed. "Your men have been watching me," Maya said after a moment of silence. Haven't they? Damon's expression remained calm, though he glanced at her seriously. Your ex is unpredictable. I wanted to make sure he didn't try anything again while emotions were still high. You didn't have to do that, Maya said softly. I can handle myself. I know you can, Damon replied simply. But you shouldn't have to handle everything alone, especially not against someone as dangerous as him. Maya studied him curiously, noticing the sincerity behind his controlled demeanor. Why do you care so much about someone you just met? Damon considered her question seriously before answering. Maybe because I understand what it feels like to be trapped by someone who refuses to let go. His answer surprised her, hinting at something deeper beneath his composed exterior. Before she could ask further, the car arrived outside her apartment building. Thank you for the ride, Maya said, stepping out slowly. And for everything else, too. Damon nodded once, his eyes lingering on her briefly before he spoke again. Be careful, Maya. Men like your ex don't usually give up quietly. Maya's smile faded slightly at his warning. Do you really think he'll come back? I think, Damon said seriously, that men who feel humiliated often become more dangerous, not less. Meanwhile, across the city, Ryan sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, anger and humiliation burning fiercely inside him. The cafe incident replayed constantly in his mind. Maya's rejection, Damon's cold intervention, the fear he had felt facing a man clearly more powerful than himself. She embarrassed me, Ryan muttered bitterly to himself, pacing his small living room. In front of everyone, and that arrogant mafia bastard thinks he can just threaten me and walk away. His phone buzzed with a message from an old acquaintance, someone he had reconnected with recently through mutual anger and resentment. A man named Victor Klein, known for his own dangerous connections within the city's criminal underworld. Heard about your little incident. Damon Reyes has plenty of enemies who'd love to see him embarrassed. Interested in discussing options? Ryan's lips curled into a bitter, calculating smile as he read the message. Perhaps, he thought, there was a way to reclaim his pride, hurt Maya for rejecting him, and strike back at Damon simultaneously. He typed back quickly. I'm listening. Let's talk. Back at Maya's apartment, unaware of the dangerous plans forming against her, Maya settled into bed that night, her thoughts lingering on Damon's unexpected kindness and hidden vulnerability. Despite her instincts warning her to remain cautious around someone so dangerous, she found herself unable to ignore the strange comfort his presence provided. Just as she began drifting toward sleep, her phone buzzed once more. Good night, Maya. Sleep well. You're safe tonight. Maya smiled softly to herself, typing back a simple reply before finally closing her eyes. Good night, Damon. Thank you again. Unbeknownst to her, across town, Ryan and Victor Klein continued their dangerous conversation late into the night, quietly planning a revenge scheme that would soon threaten not only Maya's fragile peace, but potentially ignite a dangerous war between Ryan's growing desperation and Damon's ruthless criminal empire. Over the next few weeks, Damon began visiting the cafe more openly, no longer hiding quietly in his corner booth. He would sit closer to the counter now, engaging Maya in short conversations whenever her shifts allowed a brief pause. Slowly, cautiously, something resembling genuine friendship began forming between them, despite the danger surrounding Damon's world. One quiet evening, after her shift ended, Damon offered to walk her home instead of sending a car, wanting a chance to talk more privately. The city streets were calm, the evening air crisp and cool as they walked side by side. Can I ask you something personal? Damon said suddenly, breaking their comfortable silence. Maya glanced at him curiously. Sure. What happened between you and Ryan? Really happened, I mean? Damon asked gently, his tone careful and respectful. Maya's steps slowed slightly, old memories surfacing painfully. It started small, she admitted quietly. Little comments about my choices, my friends, my appearance. Then it became controlling. Where I could go, who I could talk to. Eventually, it became physical, though he always apologized afterward, always promised it would never happen again. Damon's jaw tightened, though he remained silent, letting her continue at her own pace. I stayed longer than I should have. Maya continued softly. I convinced myself it was somehow my fault, that if I just tried harder, things would get better. It took hitting rock bottom before I finally found the courage to leave. That wasn't your fault, Damon said firmly, stopping to face her directly. None of it. Abuse like that is never deserved, regardless of how convincingly someone twists the truth. Maya looked up at him, surprised by the intensity behind his words. You sound like you understand this pain personally. Damon's expression shifted, vulnerability flickering briefly behind his usually controlled demeanor. I do, actually. Just not in quite the same way. Maya waited patiently, sensing he needed space to share at his own pace. My mother, Damon said quietly after a long pause, was trapped in a relationship similar to what you experienced when I was young. My father was cruel, controlling, dangerous. I watched her suffer for years, powerless to protect her. What happened? Maya asked softly. She finally found the courage to leave. Much like you did, Damon said, his voice heavy with old pain. But my father wouldn't accept her decision. He came after her one night, determined to force her back through violence. Maya's breath caught, dreading what she suspected came next. I was 15, Damon continued quietly. I tried to stop him. In the struggle that followed, my father was killed. It was ruled self-defense, but the experience changed everything about who I became afterward. Maya's heart ached deeply for him, understanding now the true source of his cold, controlled exterior. Damon, I'm so sorry. After that, Damon said, his voice hardening slightly, I promised myself I would never again feel powerless watching someone I cared about suffer at another person's hands. That's part of why I couldn't simply walk away when I saw what Ryan was doing to you. Maya reached out gently, placing her hand softly on his arm. Thank you for sharing that with me, and for protecting me, even before you truly knew me. Damon looked down at her hand, something warm and unfamiliar flickering behind his intense eyes. I meant what I said before, Maya. You're stronger than you realize. Watching you rebuild your life after everything you endured, it's inspired something in me I thought I had lost long ago. Their moment of quiet connection was interrupted suddenly by Maya's phone buzzing sharply in her pocket. She pulled it out, her expression shifting instantly to confusion, then fear. It's Ryan, she said, showing Damon the screen. The message read simply, You can't hide behind him forever, Maya. I know exactly where you live now. Damon's expression darkened instantly, protective anger replacing his earlier vulnerability. He's escalating. How does he know where I live? Maya asked, panic creeping into her voice. I never told him my new address. Damon's jaw clenched tightly. He must have followed you, or hired someone to track your movements. Maya's hands trembled slightly as fear from her past resurfaced painfully. This isn't supposed to happen again. I left him. I did everything right. Damon gently took her trembling hands into his own, steadying her. You're not alone this time, Maya. I promise you that. Meanwhile, in a secluded location across the city, Ryan sat with Victor Klein, reviewing photographs and information about Maya's daily schedule, her apartment, and even details about Damon's routine security measures. She's under heavy protection, Victor noted, studying the photographs carefully. Damon's men are thorough. I don't care how thorough they are, Ryan said coldly. She humiliated me. That mafia boss embarrassed me in front of everyone. I want them both to suffer. Victor studied Ryan carefully, a calculating gleam in his eyes. There are ways around even the tightest security, if you're willing to take serious risks. Ryan's eyes hardened with dangerous determination. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Back at Maya's apartment, Damon insisted on staying nearby that night, positioning additional guards discreetly around her building. As Maya prepared for bed, anxious and unsettled, Damon lingered by her door, clearly reluctant to leave her alone, despite the added security. I'll be right outside if you need anything, Damon said softly. Maya looked at him gratefully, exhaustion and fear evident in her tired eyes. Thank you, Damon, for everything. As Damon turned to leave, Maya called out softly, Damon? He turned back, waiting patiently. I'm scared, Maya admitted quietly, vulnerability breaking through her usually composed exterior. Damon stepped back toward her gently. I know, but I promise you, Maya, I won't let him hurt you again, whatever it takes. His words, quiet yet fierce with determination, offered Maya a small, comforting sense of safety amid the escalating danger surrounding her, danger that both of them knew was only just beginning. 3 days passed with careful, tense normalcy. Damon's men remained close, watching every corner of Maya's life, without ever making her feel suffocated. Ryan sent no further messages, and slowly, cautiously, Maya began to believe perhaps the danger had passed. She should have known better. One afternoon, Maya finished her shift at the cafe slightly later than usual, the sky already darkening into early evening shadows. Carol had asked her to stay behind to help close up, and by the time she stepped outside, the street was unusually quiet. She glanced around instinctively, searching for the familiar black car that had become a comforting presence lately. It wasn't there. Maya frowned, pulling out her phone to check for messages from Damon. Nothing. Unease settled uncomfortably in her stomach as she began walking briskly toward her apartment, glancing nervously over her shoulder every few steps. Halfway down the block, a van pulled up suddenly beside her, its side door sliding open forcefully. Before Maya could react, 2 men grabbed her roughly, pulling her toward the vehicle despite her frantic struggles and muffled screams. "Let me go," Maya shouted, kicking desperately against her attackers. "Quiet down." One of the men growled harshly, forcing a rough cloth against her mouth to muffle her cries. Maya's heart pounded wildly with terror as the van door slammed shut, the vehicle speeding away rapidly into the city's darkening streets. Meanwhile, across town, Damon received an urgent call from one of his men, his expression instantly shifting into cold fury. "She's gone, boss," the guard reported anxiously. "We lost sight of her outside the cafe." A van pulled up and, "Track that vehicle immediately," Damon snapped, already moving quickly toward his car. "I want every available man searching the city right now." His mind raced with dangerous possibilities, fear and anger colliding fiercely within him. He had promised Maya safety, promised to protect her from exactly this kind of danger, and now she had vanished right under his men's careful watch. Inside the van, Maya struggled against the ropes binding her wrists, her mind racing desperately for any way to escape. The vehicle eventually stopped at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of a city, and she was dragged roughly inside, thrown into a dimly lit room. Ryan stood waiting, his expression cold and triumphant. "Hello, Maya," he said quietly, malice dripping from every word. "Did you really think you could hide from me forever?" "Ryan, please," Maya said, fear evident in her trembling voice. "This isn't going to solve anything." "It's going to solve everything," Ryan said coldly. "You embarrassed me, made me look weak in front of everyone. Now you're going to understand exactly what happens when you disrespect me." Victor Klein stood nearby, watching with cold calculation. "We don't have much time before Reyes's men find this location. Handle your business quickly." Ryan's cold smile widened dangerously as he stepped closer to Maya. "Don't worry. This won't take long." Fear flooded through Maya's body, but beneath the terror, something else began stirring, a fierce, desperate determination she hadn't felt in years. She remembered Damon's words, "You're stronger than you realize." As Ryan reached toward her threateningly, Maya suddenly kicked out sharply, catching him off guard and striking him hard enough to stumble backward in surprise. "You little—" Ryan snarled furiously, lunging toward her again. Just then, the warehouse door burst open violently, Damon storming inside with several of his men, weapons drawn and expressions murderous, with barely controlled rage. "Get away from her!" Damon growled dangerously, his eyes locked coldly onto Ryan. Ryan froze, panic instantly replacing his earlier confidence. Victor Klein, seeing the situation rapidly deteriorating, attempted to flee through a side exit, only to be quickly intercepted and restrained by Damon's men. "Damon!" Maya cried out with relief, tears streaming down her face as fear finally gave way to overwhelming emotion. Damon rushed to her side immediately, gently untying her bound wrists, his hands trembling slightly with barely restrained anger and worry. "Are you hurt?" he asked urgently, checking her carefully for injuries. "I'm okay," Maya said shakily. "You came. I knew you would. Damon's eyes softened briefly, relief flooding through him before hardening once more as he turned back toward Ryan, who now stood frozen in terror, surrounded by Damon's men. You made a serious mistake tonight, Damon said coldly, his voice deadly calm as he approached Ryan slowly. Please, Ryan stammered, fear finally overtaking his earlier bravado completely. I didn't mean for things to go this far. You kidnapped an innocent woman, Damon interrupted sharply, his tone icy and controlled despite the fury evident beneath his calm exterior. Threatened her safety repeatedly, refused to accept her choice to leave you. There are no excuses left for you now. Maya watched nervously, uncertain exactly what Damon intended to do, torn between relief at her rescue and fear of what violence might follow. Damon, Maya said softly, stepping closer despite her exhaustion. Please, don't do anything you'll regret. Damon turned to look at her, his expression complicated, torn between protective fury and respect for her evident wishes. He needs consequences, Maya, Damon said quietly, but I won't do anything reckless. Not tonight. He turned back toward his men. Take him to the authorities. Make sure the kidnapping charges stick permanently. And Victor Klein, too. I have plenty of information on his other illegal activities that the police will find very interesting. Relief flooded through Maya as she realized Damon intended justice, not senseless violence. She stepped closer to him, exhaustion finally catching up with her trembling body. Damon caught her gently as she swayed slightly, wrapping a protective arm around her. You're safe now, Maya. It's finally over. Maya leaned into his support gratefully, emotional exhaustion overwhelming her completely. Thank you, Damon, for everything. As Damon's men led Ryan and Victor away in handcuffs, Damon held Maya close, quietly promising himself that he would never again allow her to face such danger alone. The weeks following the warehouse rescue passed in a strange, healing blur for Maya. Ryan and Victor Klein were formally charged with kidnapping, along with a long list of other crimes uncovered through Damon's carefully gathered evidence. For the first time in years, Maya felt the true weight of Ryan's control finally lifted completely from her life. She returned to the cafe slowly, cautiously, rebuilding her sense of normalcy day by day. Carol welcomed her back warmly, quietly relieved to see her safe. Customers who had witnessed the earlier incident treated her with gentle kindness, though none pried into the details of what had truly happened. Damon visited often during this time, though his presence shifted subtly from protective bodyguard to something warmer, more personal. Their conversations grew longer, filled with easy laughter alongside quiet, meaningful discussions about their pasts, their fears, and slowly, their futures. One evening, as Maya closed the cafe after her shift, she found Damon waiting outside, leaning casually against his car, no longer surrounded by the usual heavy security presence. No bodyguards tonight? Maya asked, smiling as she approached him. Damon returned her smile easily. I thought maybe it was time we simply spent an evening together, without constant danger looming over us. Maya's heart warmed at his words. That sounds nice, actually. They walked together through the quiet evening streets, comfortable silence settling naturally between them. Eventually, they found themselves sitting on a bench overlooking the calm, glowing city skyline. Can I ask you something? Maya said softly, breaking their peaceful silence. Of course, Damon replied, turning his attention fully toward her. Why me? Maya asked honestly. Out of everyone you could have simply ignored, why did you choose to protect me? To care about me this deeply? Damon considered her question thoughtfully before answering. Honestly, Maya, I've spent years surrounded by danger, controlling everything around me because that was the only way I knew how to survive in my world. But watching you, your strength, your resilience despite everything you'd endured, it reminded me there's more to life than simply surviving. Maya's breath caught softly at his sincerity. I never expected to find comfort in someone as dangerous as you, she admitted quietly. But somehow, being around you, I felt safer than I have in years. Damon reached over gently, taking her hand in his own. I meant what I said before, Maya. I don't want you to feel trapped or controlled ever again. Not by me, not by anyone. But if you're willing, I'd like the chance to show you what real safety, real respect, actually feels like. Tears of quiet emotion filled Maya's eyes as she squeezed his hand gently in response. I think I'd like that too. Damon smiled genuinely, warmth replacing his usual guarded expression completely. Good, because I don't plan on going anywhere, Maya. Not unless you ask me to. Maya laughed softly through her tears, relief and happiness intertwining deeply within her heart. I don't think I'll be asking that anytime soon. As the city lights twinkled softly around them, Maya finally allowed herself to feel truly free. Free from Ryan's toxic control, free from fear, and free to embrace a future she never thought she deserved. Months later, Maya stood confidently behind the cafe counter, now managing the small business herself after Carol's retirement. Her life had transformed dramatically, filled with genuine friendships, renewed confidence, and a deep, respectful love with Damon that continued growing steadily each day. Damon still carried the weight of his dangerous world, but with Maya beside him, he found himself increasingly drawn toward balance, toward using his power for protection and genuine justice rather than fear and control alone. One quiet afternoon, as Damon sat once again in his familiar corner booth, watching Maya move confidently through the cafe, she caught his gaze and smiled warmly, walking over to join him during a rare, peaceful break. You know, Maya said softly, sitting across from him, I never imagined my toxic ex attacking me that day would lead to this. Damon reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. Sometimes the worst moments lead unexpectedly toward the best outcomes. Maya smiled, peace and happiness evident clearly in her eyes for the first time in years. I'm glad you were watching that day, Damon. Truly glad. Damon's eyes softened with genuine affection. So am I, Maya. So am I. Together, they watched the sunset paint the city skyline in warm, comforting colors, both finally free from their painful pasts, embracing instead a future built on genuine respect, protection, and quiet, lasting love.